let me ask you this. You're so convinced that Bitcoin is going to inevitably land up at zero. So what do you think triggers this crash to zero, especially as we point out that more and more people are adopting Bitcoin? What is going to make all of these people change their mind and dump it and lead it to completely crumbling to zero? What's going to happen?
Well, I think all that has to happen is it really loses its momentum. I think maybe some of the institutional players, there's not that many that have come in, but some have come in to the extent that they decide to get out, that, you know, the trade isn't working out for them. I mean, look, Bitcoin got up to 60,000 back, I think it was in April of this year. And basically that's where it is right now. I mean, it hasn't really made any additional.
It made a new all-time high.
Oh, yeah, but it's sold off. I mean, right now we're about 60,000. We're a little bit below where we were.
As do most assets. Hit a new all-time high, dropped, balances, potentially hit another one.
Are you moderating this, or are you just here to tout Bitcoin too? Is that your main goal of pump Bitcoin?
I'm here to play both sides.
I'm making a point here. You don't need to argue with me. My point is
highlighting the price facts, Peter. But go ahead.
I know that. I know that. But let me finish making my point. You're the moderator.
Go ahead.
All right?
I know, and I will continue to do so. But
yes,
finish your
I know,
point.
but
I can make my own case, no problem.
You're clearly biased, and I get that. You're part of the shills out there that are trying to get people to buy Bitcoin. You probably have a bunch of Bitcoin advertisers. And my point is, we've had an unprecedented amount of money spent advertising Bitcoin. I mean, every time I turn on financial television, all I see, one commercial after another, highly produced, very slick Madison Avenue campaign trying to get people to buy Bitcoin or some other crypto. All of this push, massive amounts of money spent, all kinds of retail people getting sucked in, and the price hasn't gone up. So what that tells me is that there's massive distribution going on. The stronger hands that got in early have been pumping this market up, and they are gradually unloading their digital tokens to the public. They're spending all this money to con people into buying what they want to sell. And yeah, you have some people that have Johnny come lately that have been attracted by the greed, which always happens at tops of every bubble. Some of the people who were negative early on throw in the towel, they capitulate. They need to get in on it because they've missed so much action. And you get some people that come in, and that's happened. But the momentum is going to drop. Bitcoin is going to crack. Maybe once it gets back down below 20,000, you'll have a lot more selling coming in. I think a lot of people have taken out loans against their Bitcoin, which they hadn't been able to do in the past. So you have a leverage bet now among the hodlers. I think when the margin calls come, there's not going to be a way to meet them. You're going to have forced liquidation. There's not going to be anybody to take the other side of the trade. It's not like you got a bunch of shorts in Bitcoin that are going to cover. It's just going to fall into a vacuum. The whole market is going to implode. You know, the losses are going to be horrific. So, it doesn't take catalyst. It doesn't.
Alex, let's touch on Peter's point of leverage, because that has been a new development with Bitcoin. And there are a lot of people there that have taken out a lot of leverage against their Bitcoin trades. And as we know, when that happens, it can cause a collapse very, very quickly and very, very suddenly. So what's your answer to that, Alex?
Well, we again, I'm not talking hypotheticals, right? I mean, again, we have 1.5 million customers. Like you said, they hold over $25 billion worth of digital currencies, mostly Bitcoin. And when I give you facts, these are facts from the community. It's not some hyperbole from what this person thinks or that person thinks. So we don't see much leverage in the system. And the recent drop rate, by the way, from 69 to 60 was all liquidations on people who were on margin. So meaning there's almost no margin left at that 55 to 60,000 level, right? So what's happening with Bitcoin every year or two is that a new base is being established, right? The base used to be 15,000, then it became 29,000. Now it's probably 45 to 50,000. And you're just not going to see Bitcoin go below that for a variety of reasons. And look, this is below those price levels. So,
which price
Peter,
level?
Look, it's not too late to buy Bitcoin. You know, it's time for a shift. Peter, it's time for a shift.
If I want to lose money, it's not too late. I could buy Bitcoin and lose a bunch of money. I understand. I have a hard time believing that all of the margin debt somehow has been liquidated on the move back to 59,000, that now there are no more people that have debt on their Bitcoin. There's no way that that's the truth.
All exchanges disclose all the positions. They tell you exactly how many people are long, how many are shorts. Part of how Celsius creates yield is by lending to these institutions, to exchanges and institutions who are putting in the long or short positions. So we know exactly what is the leverage is. And by the way, if you want to join our risk department, we need people who are anti-Bitcoin to come and tell us all the things we should worry about. Are you
talking about just your book of business or throughout the entire world? You're telling me that there's no more leverage on Bitcoin, that all the loans have been repaid?
We are dealing with 300 counterparties, right? So we watch the entire market. I'm not saying there's no leverage. I'm just telling you that the retail, you're talking about retail people buying on leverage. You can measure that very, very easily, right? That is something that is available. You can go to Open Glass, or you can go to a bunch of Masari. All of these platforms show you exactly the leverage. Let's put it this way. The stock market is at all-time leverage, right? The leverage in the stock market is the highest it's ever been in history.
Yeah, look, the stock market's a bubble too. I'm not going to deny that.
That's a bubble of hundreds of trillions of dollars. So
just because Bitcoin is only bubble? Bitcoin is a bigger bubble in that the stock market has
the dollar market or the crypto market.
Look, the stock market is overvalued, right? Bitcoin has no value. 100% of its price is bubble.
So, Alex, does Bitcoin have intrinsic value?
So, just like gold and just like the dollar, Bitcoin derives its value from the fact that other people derives value to it, or it has certain value. Gold has zero value. Okay. Yes, you can use it in jewelry, and you can use it to build high fidelity electronic equipment, but that doesn't mean it has any value. So the point is, since all the value is derived from the fact that all of us vote with our pockets for gold, dollars, or for Bitcoin, and the vote has been casted over the last 13 years, there's no argument about which one of these assets is the one that people trust, right? Or at least the people who decided to migrate their dollars from the fiat system. So we're not talking about a hypothetical. We're talking about $3 trillion that migrated from the fiat world to the crypto world. And since we all vote for it every day, right? We vote to hodl. We vote to basically not use the Bitcoin as a form of payment. We only use it as a form, as a store of value, right? Again, the dollar is a phenomenal form of payment, but it's a horrible store of value. Bitcoin is exactly the opposite. It's a mirror image. It's the other side of the coin, because it's an exceptional store of value, but it's a bad form of payment.
All right, Peter, let's have you respond to Alex's notion that consensus has already made the decision.
All right. Look, first of all, of course people want to buy Bitcoin. They don't want it because they want to use it as a medium of exchange. They don't want it as a replacement for the dollar or the euro. They think they're going to get rich. People want to buy Bitcoin because they think it's going to the moon, right? They don't think that's going to happen to gold. They know it's not going to happen to the dollar. So, but when people actually want an alternative to fiat money, something that can be both a store of value, a unit of account, and a medium of exchange, then they would want to have your tokens backed by gold much more than Bitcoin. Bitcoin can never be a store of value. You could buy Bitcoin today at 60,000, and in a month it could be at 10,000. It could be lower. It's not a store of value. Just because it went way up, that's a speculative asset. That's not a stable, conservative store of value. All you're looking at is a small window of time, and you're seeing this huge 10-year bubble where people have gambled and gotten rich hodling something that's basically intrinsically worthless. And when you say something like gold has no value, well, basically, according to you, nothing has any value. There's no value in anything, and it's all worthless. And therefore, we might as well buy Bitcoin because nothing on this earth has any actual value. And so, then we could just describe value. No, you said gold is worthless. Gold has no value. That is such nonsense.
All right, Alex, let Peter finish that thought.
I said all three of them derive their value from exactly the same source, which is
no, they don't.
Well,
no, they don't. Gold,
they do.
No, gold,
right? I mean,
no. Bitcoin.
You agree that behind the US dollar, there's about $100 trillion of unfunded liability.
Look, well, I agree, right? That the dollar is a problem. Bitcoin is not the solution to that problem. It's a bigger problem. Bitcoin is.
All right.
Bitcoin is 100% faith.
Alex, let's address Peter's point of whether Bitcoin is indeed a currency or a store of value asset, or is it a speculative asset? Because that was one of the counterpoints that Peter was making. So let's tackle that issue.
Again, I can say that gold is a speculative asset. Because
but
when you
focusing
buy gold,
on Bitcoin, should we be looking at it as a currency or store of value?
Gold and US dollars are all speculative assets. They're all speculative assets. Why? Because they all depend every day on, are there more buyers or sellers? Okay, the value of dollars is determined every day by how many buyers and sellers show up for the US dollar. And against all odds, the US dollar is increasing in value, right? In the last few weeks, against all odds, with the inflation numbers and the bond markets freezing and the COVID and everything else, more and more people are buying dollars. So because when there's this uncertainty, people feel more safe with the US dollar than with other fiat currencies. And the same way that the US dollar goes up and down in value, gold goes up and down in value, the same way Bitcoin goes up and down in value. The rules are exactly the same. Claiming that one of them is somehow different than another.
Yes, you are missing the fundamental difference here. I mean, when people demand dollars, it's because they need them to settle transactions. People are still using the dollar as a medium of exchange. First of all Americans need dollars to pay taxes. I mean, because taxes are required to be paid in dollars. So there's always going to be demand. But people are buying oil, OPEC prices oil in dollars. There are all sorts of global trades that are settled in dollars. There's an entire bond market, that is in dollars. So the world is using dollars. Now, I agree, eventually they'll stop because they shouldn't be using dollars, but they are. So there's demand. There is demand for gold. I mean, only about 2 trillion of gold's, 13 trillion market cap is investors holding gold. The rest of it is used in industry, or central banks hold it as their main reserve other than fiat. But most of it is used. I mean, it's used in jewelry. It's used in electronics. There are people who need gold, and they buy gold every day because they need it. Nobody needs Bitcoin for anything.
Yes, they do.
The only people, let me finish. The only people buying Bitcoin are people who think the price is going to go up. You know, earlier you said the institutions buying Bitcoin prove that it's the new store of value. The only thing Bitcoin proves is that P.T. Barnum was right. There's a sucker born every minute, and those suckers are buying Bitcoin. This is without a doubt the biggest scam I've seen in my entire investment career. Of all the bubbles that I've witnessed, from the .com to housing, nothing can compare with the idiocy of Bitcoin and the complete that nonsense that I hear people say in support of Bitcoin, and the things that they say about gold to try to diminish its value, to try to create this false appeal for Bitcoin. I've never seen anything more ridiculous. Nothing that I heard people say during the .com bubble or the housing bubble can compare to the irrational comments that I hear every day from people about Bitcoin.
All right, Alex, let's talk on the utility aspect that Peter brings up. What is Bitcoin's utility?
So it's Peter and Jamie Dimon against the rest of the world. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But
Look, the whole world is not in on Bitcoin. Stop exaggerating.
Well, Peter, we have seen the adoption rate increase at a drastic pace, something like 2,300% just from the last quarter of 2019, about 880% from June of last year to this year. So the adoption rate is increasing exactly 2,300% since the third quarter of 2019. So the trend is pointing to mass adoption.
No, it's not pointing to mass adoption, not even close. There are more people using it, but they're using it for speculation. They're not using it as a medium of exchange. It's not a currency. They're not doing anything with it.
Well, Peter, what would you say to the idea?
I have 1.5 million customers, so I think I know a little bit better than you what they're using.
Yeah, they're gambling on Bitcoin. That's what they're doing.
Well, I met many of my customers, and I can tell you most of them.
All right.
Again, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. The only thing that changed,
yes,
that
it's still worthless.
It's taking $60,000 to buy one instead of $6,000 to buy one. So most of my customers, right? Most of my customers are trying to detach themselves from the dollar fiat system. And this is what we started the conversation.
Yes, and they think they're going to get rich in Bitcoin. If they thought Bitcoin if they think Bitcoin has stopped going up, they're going to want to sell their Bitcoin and buy stuff.
Alex, we're going to shift topics now. How are you going to use Bitcoin in 10 to 15 years? Best case scenario. And what does that mean with regards to transaction costs?
So what a person wants to do is hodl or save as many Bitcoins as they can. You should not be using your Bitcoins. You should be borrowing fiat or dollars against your Bitcoin and spending those dollars. That's what the rich people do. They borrow against their real estate. They borrow against their stocks and bonds, and they allow them to continue to appreciate. And in turn, basically, they defer their taxes on all their capital gains. So you can do that even with $100, right? You can basically join the club of how the rich people make and save and store their value. But you should use digital assets instead of stocks or bonds because those are already trading at all-time highs. And you don't want to buy these things at their highs.
All right, another question.
That is the worst financial advice you could give. You're telling people to take
financial advice. That's what I do. You just gave it.
You told people to borrow money against their Bitcoin. You told them to go on leverage and take out loans and borrow money. I mean, you know who's going to lose even more money though? The lenders. Anyone dumb enough to lend on Bitcoin, because once Bitcoin implodes, the lenders are going to take a huge hit. You know, that's what happened in the mortgage market, you know, with the subprime market. And I always said this when I was warning about it and encouraging people to short the subprime market. I knew that the lenders were going to be left holding the bag when the people who borrowed money to buy houses couldn't repay their loans. Well, the people who borrow money against their Bitcoin, ultimately, they're not going to have the money back because I think Bitcoin is going to collapse so fast that the lenders are not going to be able to liquidate the Bitcoin fast enough to recover the loans. And so there's going to be a huge loss among the lending communities because they loaned against a phony asset.
There was just an article in Forbes that listed the 10 richest people in the world and how none of them paid any taxes. And when they dug through their taxes, they realized all of them borrowed against their stock. All of them. Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs. And
what's your point? But at least, look, at least stocks are real assets. Many of them pay dividends that you can use to make your margin payment.
Bitcoin pays dividends, Peter. Bitcoin pays dividends. Price Celsius.
How does Bitcoin pay a dividend?
How does Bitcoin pay a dividend? Because we earn yield.
How do you earn yield on Bitcoin? What do you do to generate income on that Bitcoin?
I'm happy to spend an hour with you.
Yeah, you're trading it. You've got to be taking a tremendous amount of risk. The Bitcoin itself doesn't generate any yield.
It does. Just like any other asset can generate yield. Gold.
No, but what earnings does the Bitcoin generate?
Gold generates 5.5% at Celsius. Yield.
No,
tokenized
what
gold
are you doing to generate that? You must be taking tremendous risk to generate those returns. Of course you are.
Okay.
You're not. Of course you must be.
Look, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just explaining that this is
interest rates are practically zero. How can you get 5% interest on gold?
It's an amazing opportunity for people to unbank themselves, right? Take advantage of this market.
You know who also had an amazing opportunity? Bernie Madoff had an amazing opportunity too. Yeah.
I am placing a bet that Bitcoin will be above 150,000 by tax day, by April 15th. We will see Bitcoin going at or above 150,000. It will take a correction after that. I said that several times. It will go back below 100,000. But we have not seen the blow off top yet for Bitcoin.